What's going on, Aces? Welcome back to the channel. So, breaking news out of the White House. President Biden has decided to pardon his son Hunter tonight, sparing his youngest son from a possible prison sentence for federal felony pow pow and tax convictions, reversing the past promises not to use his powers of the presidency for the benefit of his family members. So I'm reading this article from the Associated Press, and I'll read the official statement posted here from the president himself. One thing about Biden, he gonna drop some news on a Sunday night, okay? The last big announcement that he made was also on a Sunday evening when he said he was dropping out of the race. But I'm really glad that he's giving, a presidential pardon to his son, Hunter. For one, he's not running for reelection, right? And for two, I agree with him. I feel like Hunter has a target on his back simply because of the fact that his last name is Biden. And also, right, not to compare apples and apples, to oranges, but when you look at the incoming president and all of his charges or pending investigations, convictions, actually 34 felony convictions, and even his, cabinet members and his administration as a whole, their, you know, investigations, federal investigations, convictions, felony charges, all these, pending criminal behaviors are numerous, right? They're plentiful. So I'm absolutely 100% here for Biden giving his son a presidential pardon. Absolutely. I feel like even Michelle Obama changed course because we are no longer in the era of when they go high. Oh, I'm sorry, when they go low, we go high. I feel like that doesn't really apply anymore. I feel like a lot of times and a lot of people currently, they only speak one language. They only recognize or respect one thing, and that's power. And I feel like Biden was wise to use his power while he still has it before next month, um, to give a pardon to his son. Absolutely. So Hunter, he was under federal investigation in December 2020, and he at the time said that he wouldn't give his son a pardon because he was still in the race. But now that he's not in the race anymore, he absolutely, I agree with his decision. I feel like Jill probably talked to him and, they heard the public initially, well, collectively, right? Even the women on The View and other people online have been saying that he definitely needs to give his son the presidential pardon while he still can before Trump is sworn in next month. So I'll read the statement from President Joe Biden out of the White House. It says, "Today, I signed a pardon for my son Hunter. From the day I took office, I said I would not interfere with the Justice Department's decision making, and I kept my word, even as I have watched my son selectively and unfairly prosecuted, without aggravating factors like use in a crime, multiple purchases, or buying a weapon. As a straw purchaser, people are almost never brought to trial on felony charges solely for how they filled out a gun form. Those who were late paying their taxes because of serious addictions but paid them back subsequently with interest and penalties are typically given non criminal resolutions. It is clear that Hunter was treated differently. The charges in his case came about only after several of my political opponents in Congress instigated them to attack me and to oppose my election. Then a carefully negotiated plea deal agreed to by the Department of Justice unraveled in a courtroom, with a number of my political opponents in Congress taking credit for bringing political pressure on the process. Had the plea deal held, it would have been a fair, reasonable resolution of Hunter's cases. No reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's cases can reach any other conclusion than Hunter was singled out only because he is my son, and that is wrong. There has been an effort to break Hunter, who has been 5.5 years sober even in the face of unrelenting attacks and selective prosecution. In trying to break Hunter, they've tried to break me, and there's no reason to believe it will stop here. Enough is enough. For my entire career, I have followed a simple principle: just tell the American people the truth. They'll be fair minded. Here's the truth: I believe in the justice system, but as I have wrestled with this, I also believe raw politics has infected this process, and it led to a miscarriage of justice. And once I made this decision this weekend, there was no sense in delaying it further. I hope Americans will understand why a father and a president would come to this decision. Absolutely. This American does, right? I absolutely 100% stand with and stand by his decision. I feel like Hunter absolutely was targeted because his last name is Biden. I think that he, definitely got caught in the crossfires of um, the political attacks going back and forth. I do feel like if his last name wasn't Biden, then he wouldn't have had a felony conviction. Now, we can talk about the two-tier justice system in regards to how that works against more marginalized populations, but that's another video for another day. What I will say is this: I can appreciate the fact that, Biden did try to atone for his past mistakes, like in regards to um, how, in my opinion, this is when I was real little, but he did Anita Hill really dirty on Capitol Hill back when he was a senator and she was testifying against Clarence Thomas. We're still paying for Biden and his foolishness, not listening to Anita and allowing Clarence Thomas to effectively eradicate affirmative action and just be one of the most unethical Supreme Court justices in our nation's history. But on the flip side, Biden also appointed more Black women to positions of power than any other president in history. He appointed not only Vice President Kamala Harris, but he also appointed Ketanji Brown Jackson to the Supreme Court, the first Black woman Supreme Court justice in our nation's history, and all kind of, multiple federal Black women judges around the country. So I feel like, he's trying to, I don't want to say necessarily atone or well, maybe atone a bit for the past, miscarriages of justice, because like he said, throughout his career, it's not been perfect, but he's tried to be as fair as possible. And so him presenting his son with a federal presidential pardon, in my opinion, it was the right thing to do. Because Hunter, if you guys remember, he was in that car accident when um, when Biden lost his first wife and his first child. And, they passed away, and Hunter was the survivor of that. I can't even imagine the survivor's guilt that he must have been going through. And, people turn to illegal substances and addictions for a myriad of different reasons. But like I said, I can't imagine that would have been, easy to deal with, and how difficult that must have been. So the fact that, like Biden said, he's been 5.5 years sober, he's been seeking help, and they tried to use his son to break him. Absolutely, use the power while you have it. It's a good thing that, Biden is pretty level-headed, because I feel like a lot of people in his position would have used his presidential powers, especially since the Supreme Court recently said that the president has immunity, essentially. A lot lesser people of a lesser, character would have abused that position of power, right? Um, but, you know, in my opinion, I do feel like he has done the right thing. I hope that after this presidential pardon, that Hunter realizes what a blessing it is, that he does have a father who loves him so much, and he does continue to do the work that he's been doing to keep himself sober for these last 5.5 years. I hope that, the Biden family, now that Joe Biden has essentially retired from politics after lifelong service. I think he was one of the youngest senators elected in our nation's history. He's been serving for, I think, around 50 something years. That's a long career. So I feel like, after serving for so long and honorably, essentially, right? Like I said, he made some missteps early on in his career. He's tried to make up for those. I feel like he probably learned a lot of things from serving as President Obama's vice president. And, being this president, these past 4 years, he's strengthened our economy. And hopefully, he can kind of ride off into the sunset. You know what I mean? Be there, establish a closer relationship with his son Biden and the rest of his family. But I'm actually glad. I'm glad that he pardoned his son. I'm glad that, he did what he needed to do as president. I'm 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 grateful that um that he was able to step in, in 2020 and strengthen our economy. He did what he needed to do. Um, he even hired the first Black woman, press secretary. He put a lot of Black women on the map, now that I'm thinking about it, more so than any other president in history. Um, and so, these next 4 years are to be determined. God is still sovereign. He's on the throne. But I will say that kudos to President Biden for issuing his son a presidential pardon. Absolutely. I'm glad. So what do you guys think? Do you think that he was right by issuing Hunter a presidential pardon before he leaves office next month? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Please be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will talk with you in the next one. Take care, Aces. Bye.